being on Instagram, it's not even fun for us anymore. I'm scared to even look at my direct messages. So I've tried myself because the social media accounts obviously ain't doing enough.
The Crystal Palace footballer Wilfried Zaha talking to our own CNN Sports contributor Darren Lewis. I want to stress something here. That was over 6 months ago. And now, today, we are still talking about it. We're asking, has anything really changed? When is enough enough? And here's a pledge from us too here at CNN World Sport. We've been front and centre over the years when it comes to tackling the ugly stain of racism on the beautiful game. And you can be sure of this, our commitment to that cause will simply not change. During the ongoing pandemic, it's online abuse rearing its vile head. The Manchester United footballer Marcus Rashford recently branded the abuse he received as humanity and social media at its worst. Let's time it all out. Go back to February the 7th when Lauren James of United's women's team spoke out to condemn the racist abuse she received from anonymous social media accounts. And 3 days later, the Facebook-owned social media platform Instagram committing to stronger action on abuse. But despite that, we then learnt of the abuse dished out to United's Anthony Martial and the Arsenal player Willian. Then there was this, the sickening words aimed at Jan Danda, who plays for second-tier Swansea City.
I see abuse getting sent to women footballers, to people for the way they look, racial comments about people's disabilities. It shouldn't happen. I'm not just talking for myself here, that the social media companies, they see every single day that all they have to do is put themselves in the shoes of the person who's getting the abuse, and anyone with a good heart wouldn't let this happen. Anyone who understood the pain that the people go through who are getting the abuse, it shouldn't happen. And people say, well, why don't the person come off social media? That shouldn't be the case. The only person who should come off the social media is the person sending the abuse. So it's got worse. And I think the social media companies have to do more, and until they do, then I can't see any progress. The person who abused me has been let off lightly, and he can go and do it again.
Powerful, impactful words, no question. Well, to get a better understanding of that impact and indeed the scale of the abuse, CNN World Sport contributor Darren Lewis spoke with Troy Townsend, the father of England international footballer Andros. Troy is the head of development at anti-discrimination organisation Kick It Out in England. Darren and Troy also joined by the data science expert Jonathan Hirshler.
Now, I've written before that with supporters unable to go to stadia across Europe at the moment, this is football's racism problem moving online. Would you agree?
Listen, it is football's problem. Football has had a problem that has existed for far too long, and football has probably not addressed that problem in the manner that it should have done. Before lockdown, we were still on the back of probably one of the worst seasons in regard to racial hate within our stadiums, player to player, on platforms, so let's not just think that it's a problem that has grown over the last 10 months. It's been a problem that has existed and never really been addressed.
Now, Jonathan, there will be people watching this wondering how in this day and age there aren't stricter protocols to sign up to these platforms, more manpower to monitor for abuse, and of course, software that can just filter out abusive language. They all seem like easy solutions. Or is it more complex than that?
There are, of course, lots of solutions that the social platforms have within their armory. They've got the filters that you refer to. They've got the capability of identifying a lot of the sort of keywords, the abusive keywords that are put out there. One of the problems that I think they face is the fact that it's a very nuanced issue. So if, let's just take Facebook, for example, if Facebook or Instagram put 100 or 1,000 moderators to look at the issue and to try and identify where abuse is coming from, then they're only going to find what they're looking for. They're not going to cast that net to look for things that are that some of the abusers are innovating and using new tactics. And we saw in the PFA report that we did last summer, we saw 1/3 of abuse that was identified, targeted at the players we looked at, came through in emoji forms. How is a moderator who works for Instagram or Facebook, who might be based in the east or west coast of the US, or maybe in an office in Africa or Asia, how are they going to pick up that nuance, and how are they going to understand that that's actually, that emoji is being used, it's being weaponized to send abuse at somebody. My company, we've got a service called Threat Matrix, which actually does exactly that. It's able to identify the nuance in those emojis, in the keywords that are being sent out, and who they're targeting as well.
Jonathan, is this just a football problem?
No, it's not. It cuts across different sports. We've seen it in the US, in the NFL, in the NBA. Lots of different sports have it. The problem is also outside of the UK. It's not just us. In fact, lots of the abuse that's received that comes through to Premier League players is received from abroad.
Now, Troy, I know you speak to players who have been abused in the Premier League and their families, but you also have a son who plays football in the English top division, and he has been targeted with online racist abuse. What has been the effect on your son, Andros, and on you?
He was recently targeted by just the words, die, so someone wanting him to die, and for a family that's, as a parent, that's hard to take, that's your child. And the aggressive nature of the abuse has left so many emotions stirring around in my head, and so many emotions that will stir around in the heads of the people that I talk to as well, the family members I talk to. It's a very, very emotional thing. Black people have been dehumanized for hundreds and hundreds of years and have been belittled in that process. And if we're in 2021 and those companies, those organizations cannot understand the context behind every banana emoji followed by the N-word, followed by rows and rows of gorilla emojis, that fundamentally is where the problem is. If you don't see those as issues directed at black people, black players, people of color in their generation in this time, then how are we ever going to make our platforms actually fit for purpose for everybody to use? But if you don't identify that as an issue, then there's never going to be a true solution that's fit for purpose, is there?
So would you say legislation and regulation are the next obvious steps to affect meaningful change?
Well, listen, we've been speaking for quite a long time about an online harms bill in England. The government have got involved on many occasions. It's been muted for, I don't know, maybe 2 years now. We just like to see some timelines behind that. Has it been escalated up the ladder? Is there some kind of, we're coming to an end where it will be presented into Parliament and they vote on it and it becomes an actual bill that maybe then will hold the social media companies to account?
Legislation and regulation are needed. We need to have stronger powers. The authorities need to have stronger powers to be able to put better, stronger punishments and deterrents out there. That will absolutely help. But you still need to be able to identify the perpetrators. You still need to find who those people are. You need to de-anonymize them. You need to identify them. You need to call them out. And the laws won't do that for you. The laws will just give you something at the end point to treat them with and to punish them with. You need stronger laws in place, absolutely, but you also need to put the technology in place right now, because some of it is absolutely available, to identify some of these people, call them out, and really act as a proper deterrent to stop this from happening.
A very powerful dialogue indeed there. Our thanks to the panel there. Well, Twitter declined an invitation to join our roundtable, but told us in a written statement racist behaviour, abuse and harassment have absolutely no place on our service, adding that they are committed to reducing the burden on victims of abuse. Instagram did not initially respond to numerous invitations to talk to us on the subject. I'll say that again. Instagram did not initially respond to our numerous requests to talk on this subject. But a Facebook spokesperson saying, "We do not want racist abuse on Facebook or Instagram. It is against our guidelines and we will remove it when we find it." Earlier this month, we announced tougher action to stop this behaviour. Now, if someone repeatedly sends DMs that break our rules, we will disable their account. And as I mentioned, you can be sure we are staying across this every step of the way. That is our pledge to you this day. Becky, back to you.
Yeah, keep it up because we have to kick it out. Thank you very much indeed. Patrick Snell with World Sport. We will be back with Connect the World after this.